Brown. It's Sunday morning and it's time for The Fix.
First up, we speak to some of the graduates of the ANC Youth League who made the cut into the cabinet. And then we catch up with good leader who is now the freshly minted Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Ms. Patricia de Lille. And as is custom, we take a look at the weekend newspapers to see what's made headlines this week and why. The Fix starts now.
This is The Fix, where every Sunday, without fear or favour, we question the big role players. We look ahead to tell you what matters, how it affects you, and why you should care.
Minister of Justice and Correctional Services is Ronald Lamola. Minister of Transport is Filike Mbalula.
That's, of course, President Cyril Ramaphosa swearing in the graduates of the African National Congress's Youth League. Young leaders in the ANC have made it into President Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinet, and as deputy ministers, it is hoped that this will grow the ANC's own timber and also bring a fresh perspective to some of the underlying issues. Joining me this morning is newly minted Justice and Correctional Services Minister, Minister Ronald Lamola. Minister, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. And then, of course, I don't have a newcomer, but he is still a graduate of the African National Congress Youth League. New Transport Minister, Minister Filike Mbalula. Minister, welcome. Thank you so much for making it. Minister, let me start with you. You have an enormous portfolio bedeviled with problems. You have PRASA corruption, you have issues around Transnet, and then the most important and basic question, of course, is the fact that we still don't have an affordable, reliable, cheap transport system for poor working class people. What is on your to-do list as Minister of Transport as we speak?
Well, first, thank you, Karima, for having us. Obviously, beginning from this week, we hit the ground running. We need to sharpen our perspective and define our strategic tasks. Obviously, at the heart of what we need to do is to shape up with regard to means of mass transport, which is in tatters, and then is to ensure that our people gain access, but at the same time to the means of affordable transport. I've had experience with the President with the breaking down of trains, not running on time, and that is the biggest. What I'm not going to put up with is laziness, mediocrity, and we need to look at proper people and proficiency into proper positions. I'm not going to function properly if I've got a nurse mending a transport system. I need an engineer who's supposed to mend a transport system with proper qualifications. Then we're rolling. I need to get somebody who understands the system and where we are going, and we get the skills lined up. I don't need a nurse to manage a transport system.
Absolutely, and of course you don't need carriages that can't fit on your train, on your rail lines, as we've seen with former buys from the rail system. I'm going to come back to the issue of corruption, but Minister Lamola, you've got as great a task. One of your big issues is, of course, access to justice for poor people, the right to administrative justice that we all have under the Constitution, and then the second thing is also you have a big mess on your hands with correctional services. They came under the spotlight in the Bosasa hearings at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry. Tell me, are those two things on the top of your list to deal with?
Yes, they are, and I think mine is to ensure that the ideal dream of building a just, non-racial, non-sexist justice system with access for all South African, poor, rich, irrespective of geographical location, it must be able to. But it must also be able to develop a system that also responds to the current challenges of our country, inequality, the social ills that we have, drugs, gender-based violence, it must be able to respond to that. So those are issues that we will immediately, when we come in, hit the ground. The issues that you are raising that has been raised through the Zondo Commission from the Department of Correctional Services, I'm aware that the former minister had already requested some kind of report as to what are the issues, looking at reviewing some of the contracts. It will be a report I'm going to get as I go into the office and look into what he has received and what should be done without delay. And I will also look into the whole Department of Correctional Service to see what needs to be rejigged to ensure that it is efficient. It also helps us to fight crimes in terms of the rehabilitation of offenders and also integrating into the communities, because that is another huge aspect.
One of the things that Pop Crew has already said is that they want all contracts with PRASA cancelled. Is that something that has your support, Minister? Are you going to go about cancelling the contracts with PRASA, considering the fact that PRASA basically infiltrated your organisation from top to bottom in many ways and corrupted it? We have a trial that is running at the moment.
Yeah, obviously I will have to be informed by the report that will be in the Minister's office, because I'm aware there has been some kind of communication in that regard. So that report is going to inform me in terms of what action needs to be taken.
Minister Mbalula, let me come back to you. The question of apartheid spatial planning still informs our transport system. We know that if someone who works in the front of a hotel who starts at 6, that person needs to leave their home at 4 o'clock because of where people are living. So spatial planning is a big issue, and the transport system obviously is the tapestry that connects people. We can get greater productivity, we can get greater safety if workers don't spend so much time getting to work. The other thing, of course, is that at the moment, most workers spend their wages on transport. They work to get to work. How are you going to go about setting that right?
Karima, we need an integrated transport system that work efficiently and take into consideration all aspects of particularly the poorest of the poor, and how do we actually make it accessible and efficient for them. So in this particular instance, rail must speak to taxis and at the same time at an affordable rate. We know that buses are subsidized by the state, and how do we get all of this integrated to make it a point that the poorest of the poor are actually able to get to work at an affordable rate and at the same time get proper transport.
So obviously, I mean, we have a cooperative system of governance. You're going to have to be speaking to your counterparts in cabinet. So you're going to have to be speaking to human settlements, for example, just about where new places are going to be built, how people are going to connect with the economy, and so on. To what extent are you going to rely on that cooperative way of working so that you don't plan in silos, you don't lay a railway line where there are no homes or homes are built where there are no railway lines or no buses or no taxis? How are you going to make sure that you're going to work with departments that are integral to you getting that mix right?
Well, at the present moment, when I leave here, I'm supposed to go to Durban. And yesterday, 14 people were injured in Tshwane through an accident by PRASA rail, a new PRASA rail, and with Transnet. And then in Durban, 17 trucks bent down. Now we've got an interministerial committee with the Minister of Police and ourselves central to that. So that is going to be the approach in terms of tackling some of the issues that we work through an integrated cooperative, working relations. So that, like you say, we don't work in silos. You are trying to address something, yet it breaks down elsewhere. We need to bring that into our strategic plan in terms of working relations.
Now, you've had the fortunate, experience of also being the police minister. So you know, for example, the role that taxis play in the destabilization, not just of communities, but also the transport system. But you also know how essential they are. If they stop operating, the country comes to a complete standstill. What is your long-term plan for how taxis is going to become part of a system? system? Because many people argue that taxis should be feeder points. They should be taking people from their homes to a train station, from a train station to a hotel. They shouldn't be on the road from here to Nelspruit, for example. How exactly is taxis going to fit into the value chain of the transport system?
The taxi situation, we have not had a consistent, well-defined plan that the Transport Department have been implementing. We came with recapitalization with Meg Maharaj, and then came Jeff Radebe, sustained that, and then it just collapsed. So I don't want to say it was neglected, but these wars, that territorial battles that are going on, and the roots in fighting, I want harmony, even if I know that it will be difficult to achieve it 100%.
Minister, they say that if you want to get into the taxi business, you have to shoot your way into a route, otherwise you can't get in.
Absolutely. So my approach will be to work with them properly and to understand their needs, and also what is our perspective, not short-term, but the long-term goal of what we need to do to support the taxi industry. We can't do away with it. It is a very much part of us, and we need to address their needs and check as to the long-term goals that we need to address with them.
Okay. Justice Minister, the question around access to justice is a very big issue. We know that a recent study just showed that the police, for example, in a place like Mitchell's Plain, which is a poor working-class township in the Western Cape, targets the poor. We have the question of drugs, for example. So far, we've had a law enforcement approach, but rich kids who are addicted to drugs go to rehab. Poor kids go to prison and become part of a criminal system. What is the plan of the Justice Department to deal with issues that face young people, specifically in the criminal justice system? We have youngsters that are being kept with adults. We have a lot of mismanagement in our prison systems. And this, of course, cannot be done without the assistance of correctional services personnel. So you're going to be having to have one very tough conversation with POPRU, for example.
Yes, and we'll also have to look at the Criminal Procedure Act in terms of how it helps us to deal with some of the issues of drugs, because the drug is a big scourge in our society across the country, and not only in the Western Cape, in the Eastern Cape, in PE, here in most of the cities, El Dorado Park.
But are we going to send drug users to prison, or are we going to get affordable treatment for them? What is going to be the approach?
We are going to look at the Criminal Procedure Act in terms of that, it helping us. But we have also to look at the Second Chance program, which has been adopted in some of the countries, which is it's working in terms of how do you then help people who find themselves in the wrong side of the law. How do you ensure that those people are rehabilitated, are skilled? Because even in the prisons, we have got trainings and so forth that must enable us to reintegrate these kind of people into society. And that will help also the younger ones, because the most affected by crime, whatever type of crime, including drugs, is the youth. And
they are both perpetrators and victims of crime.
Yes, so the prisons can also be used to ensure that these people, when they get out of the prison, they can be rehabilitated, they can be the skills that they gain can be used productively and economically in society. So it's a program that we are going to look into in terms of that part, in terms of looking at the second chance. It's the first priority I'm going to look that policy, because I know it has been somewhere gathering some information, but it has not yet been published. So we will have to look at it as a matter of priority, because I think that is what will keep society come in to help the correctional service, because without the help of society, a social compact, we will not be able as a criminal justice cluster to function. We need everyone, the private sector, civil society, everyone on the desk.
Talking about social compacting, one of the issues that South Africa faces is, of course, the alarming rate of gender-based violence. Now, you're sitting with a situation where the police as a sector is actually the group of people that kill their girlfriends, their wives, their lovers the most. Femicide actually happens within the police as a sector on quite an alarming ever-growing scale. We also know that the criminal justice system often re-victimizes those who have survived abuse and those who have survived rape. How are you going to continue with the reform programs that have been started to change this? I know a task team has been set up to look at gender-based violence. Where's the Justice Ministry going to fit into that value chain?
Yeah, obviously we are going to look at the recommendation of the Gender Summit that was convened by the presidency, and I'm happy that some of the recommendations have already been implemented, like reintroducing the gender-based court. They opened one here in Johannesburg early last month. So we're going to look into those recommendations and start from looking at those recommendations because they are a product of a social compact. And then we can then from the department side look at the various legislations to see how do they help the process of us ensuring that the gender-based violence is treated in a dignified manner if a woman goes to a police station, or how the police, as you are saying, react in terms of their own families. All that process we will have to be informed by the process that we'll have to look into terms of reviewing some of the legislations so that they help us to ensure that the gender strategy, it's harmonized, it reflects the society.
Now, you are also both members of the African National Congress Executive Committee. You are busy having a lekgotla. In fact, it continues today. Let me start with you, Minister of Transport. The newspapers report this morning that the line has really been drawn that the presidency and most members of the NEC is saying that you now need to focus on the municipal elections that are coming on. You can't sit on your laurels. You can't be having one senior official speaking differently and one senior official saying something else. We had the mayor of Ekurhuleni, Mr. Masina, saying that it makes a mockery of the rule of law to appoint Pravin Gordhan because he is subject of public protector's report. You yourself have come in to be focused on by the public sector, or rather by the public protector. And then, of course, we've had the old factional battles that have bedeviled the African National Congress. What is the line coming out of the lekgotla around unity? And I'm not talking about fake unity where people pretend to kind of have made peace with each other, but we actually know some people are trying to organize an early NGC so that they can move. And of course, just the kind of objections that people have raised to how the cabinet has been constructed.
Well, the main theme in terms of elections, which is what I'm responsible for in the NC, is to fix local government. Fixing local government means fixing people who are not doing exactly what the NC expect them to do. And we need to do what we are supposed to do on the ground, and fixing local government municipalities with all the challenges we're facing. The NEC will speak for itself through the NEC statement, but issues of discipline are at the center of fixing the ANC itself going forward. People speaking out of 10, and when there is a center, the center must hold. You can't have all of us at the same time speaking what we like. We're a big organization, we've got different views. We can't be inimical from within. Even if Mzwandile or whoever can have views about Pravin or whoever, he's got no local standing to call a member of the ANC to order. He must write to the officials and the SG and basically speak out about what is dissatisfied. It's not an opposition to the ANC. The ANC cannot accept an opposition from within. So there is determination from this election and going forward to centralize the theme of renewal. And renewal is underpinned by discipline, focus on the people's needs and obsession, and the emphasis on Tumamina campaign going forward. Okay,
I've been told to wrap, but Mr. Lamola, I can't let you go without asking you, do you feel that the generational mix was done justice to? You are the youngest Justice Minister in the history of our country. We see a lot of youth league leaders or former youth league leaders having made it in members of the Young Communist League, also making it into as lots of deputy ministers. Do you think that question has been answered? And can the ANC renew its own timber?
Yeah, I think a foundation has been laid from which the ANC can build. It's a very good foundation. It might not be full justice as we may want it, but I think a foundation has been laid, and we will be able to renew the organization. And I think going forward, more younger people are going to come out. And I think society has welcomed this move with an open arms, and that will augur well for the structures. And when you look across the country, structures of the ANC are led by young people. So it's just that they need to come up and be given responsibilities and phased in with a clear succession program. And I'm happy that even the senior leaders, some of them that might not have made it, are welcoming the move. They are helping us, some giving very good advices from time to time. So I think the generational mix at this stage, it's a foundation that we can build from to renew this organization.
Ministers, thank you very much. Good luck with you. Lekgotla, we will probably have you back shortly. I will probably have to talk to you about PRASA and what your plans are there. Thank you so very much for joining us. Still ahead on The Fix, we hear from good leader who is now Public Works and Infrastructure Minister, Patricia de Lille.